The first call I got from my younger sister, Lois, came just before our mother's funeral. Lois hadn't responded to any of my messages before that. She told me she had just returned from Hawaii with her husband, Keith, and brought me some chocolate souvenirs. I was furious at how thoughtless she was, especially since our mother had just passed away, so I yelled at her in front of the whole family. I told her, "You can have my husband, just get to the funeral already." Lois was shocked and replied with a confused "what?" from the other end of the phone. After giving her the funeral home address, I angrily hung up. I knew she would try calling back, so I turned off my phone, sat down in the family seating area, and tried to calm down. My name is Emily, and I'm 38 years old. I grew up in a family of 4, my parents, my younger sister Lois, and me. My parents were strict with me, the oldest, but they always spoiled Lois because of her pretty looks. Whenever Lois wanted something, she would give a sweet smile and say, "Emily, I want this." I would almost always give in, even though I regretted it. This pattern continued even as she grew older. Lois became very troublesome, and my father passed away 8 years ago. About 6 months ago, my mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness and had been in and out of the hospital. I married Keith, a senior colleague from my work, 2 years ago and moved into an apartment near my office. Over the last 6 months, I had been driving an hour each way to care for our sick mother while also working. Lois, however, had quit her job a year ago after breaking up with her boyfriend, and had moved back home. She kept telling me I was better at taking care of our mother and pushed the responsibility onto me. So, I took a month off work to look after her. Despite my efforts, she passed away 2 days ago. Where was Lois? She had gone to Hawaii a week before our mother passed, even though I begged her not to leave. At the funeral, after the priest finished speaking, friends and family began to pay their respects. It was clear how loved our mother was, because not only family but many of her friends also came to mourn. Even some of my colleagues from work showed up. One of them, Keith's father, the president of my company, was there, offering his condolences. He had been very supportive throughout my difficult time, but I couldn't find Keith anywhere at the funeral. Where was he? Keith had been on a business trip overseas since last week, and I couldn't reach him. "I see," my father-in-law said. "I'll ask the sales manager about it. Keith and I work in different departments, and he's in sales. He often complains that I'm always busy with my own work and business trips." I tried to understand that Keith wasn't here during this difficult time, but I was still worried about handling everything on my own, especially since I couldn't get in touch with him or my sister. Meanwhile, my father-in-law took time out of his busy schedule to come to the funeral, and his support almost made me cry. I was really grateful, but I had to hold back the tears as I sat in the limo heading to the crematory with the rest of the family. When I turned my phone back on, hoping Keith might have tried to contact me, I was shocked to see nearly 30 voicemails, most of them from Lois. In one, she yelled, "Answer your phone. You can't just make up ridiculous lies, because you're upset that I took Keith from you." I was confused, but then it hit me, Lois and Keith were having an affair. My heart raced as I listened to more messages. One from Keith said, "I'm so sorry, but you're a strong woman, you can survive on your own, but I need to support Lois, let's break up." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like a line from a soap opera. I felt sick to my stomach, wishing I hadn't found out this way. Why did I have to learn that my husband and my sister were having an affair, and having a great time in Hawaii during my mother's funeral? I called Lois and told her, "You need to come right away if you want to say your final goodbye to Mom. We're already on the way to the crematory." Lois replied, "That's not funny, stop lying, you're just bitter, because I took Keith from you." I couldn't believe what she was saying. I told her, "But it's the truth, you must be upset about losing your husband." "Yeah, Keith is going to be the next company president, and he's rich. I understand how you feel, but there are good lies and bad lies, you know? You're an adult, you should know better." She shocked me when she said, "I never thought I'd hear that from you." Then she admitted, "I didn't know you and Keith had been cheating." I could tell Lois was happy about all of this. Ever since we were kids, she loved playing tricks on me and laughing when I fell for them. I sighed in frustration. This isn't the time for this. I told her again, "If you want to say your final goodbye to Mom, come now." Lois didn't listen. She asked, "Why do you have to bring up Dad?" Her voice sounded like she and Keith were having a discussion, and it seemed like they didn't expect me to mention him. Then, Keith took the phone. "Emily, is it true?" he asked. I replied, "If you don't believe me, do whatever you want. I'm hanging up now." After a while, we arrived at the crematory. This was my last chance to say goodbye to Mom, and my mind was a mess from everything that had happened over the last few days, plus the grief of losing her. I didn't know what to do anymore, and tears started running down my cheeks. Seeing me like this, one of my relatives patted my back and said, "Your mom would be so grateful to you, Emily, for taking care of her until the end." I stood in front of my mother's casket and said my final goodbye. "Mom, thank you for everything. I'm going to miss you so much." Just as the casket was being carried out for cremation, Lois and Keith rushed in. Lois screamed, "Wait, where's Mom?" When she saw the casket disappearing behind the doors, she tried to reach for it, but the doors shut mercilessly in front of her. "No, I haven't said goodbye to Mom yet," Lois wailed, and Keith stood behind her, stunned. "I told them, we need to move. You're disturbing everyone," Lois cried. "Why didn't you tell me, Emily? I couldn't see Mom at the end." "It's your fault." I was furious. "My fault? You should have listened when I told you how serious Mom's condition was. I can't even count how many times I explained it to you. Every time, you'd just say, 'I don't know how to handle this. I'll leave it to you, Emily.'" Lois snapped back. "It's your fault, because you didn't explain things clearly enough." Even Keith started blaming me too. I glared at them. "Then what were you two doing all this time? You were on a romantic vacation in Hawaii, right?" The relatives were shocked and whispered among themselves. They had seen how Lois and Keith had been acting, and I'd been making excuses for them, so they wouldn't look bad. I looked at Mom's casket, apologizing in my mind. I had to clear things up now. "How long has this affair been going on? You knew I was taking time off to care for Mom." I was struggling and asked for help, "But all you two did was have fun together, didn't you?" Lois interrupted. "Enough, it's all your fault, Emily. You didn't keep Keith close enough." I was confused. "What are you talking about?" Keith spoke up. "You need to prioritize your husband more. He got bored at home because all you ever talked about was work and caregiving." Poor Keith. I glared at him, and he quickly looked away. "Emily, you managed to marry a rich future company president, and you got conceited. That's why I took him from you. You always do this, Emily." It hit me hard. "You've been doing this to me since high school, haven't you? Every time I had a boyfriend, Lois would steal them from me." The only time Lois didn't steal my boyfriend was with Keith, because she was already living with her boyfriend at the time. It was a shame, though. "Now," Lois said, "from now on, I'll be with Keith and become the future president's wife. So, break up with him." I was done. "Fine, you can have Keith. I'll divorce him." At that point, I didn't care about anything. When I decided to marry Keith, I had no idea he was the son of the company president. He had worked at a regional branch and then moved to headquarters, where I worked. Keith was smart, friendly, and quickly connected with everyone. I started to have feelings for him, and we began dating. Eventually, he proposed, and I happily accepted. I didn't find out his father was the president of the company until I visited his parents' house. It was a huge surprise. Keith said, "Promise me you won't come back later, begging for a divorce." I replied, "I won't do that." "You're sure you want to leave me?" "Yes, I am. If you leave me, no man will marry a workaholic like you. You know that, right?" I told him, "I can live my life however I want, on my own, but for today, please just say goodbye to Mom properly." Lois and Keith exchanged smirks, like they had won. My relatives watched with raised eyebrows, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm really sorry for showing such an unpleasant scene," I said, apologizing to my relatives. But then I heard Lois whisper, "You're always playing the good girl. I hate that about you." I had put up with so much, because she was my little sister, but I had had enough. I decided I was done considering her my sister. I was getting divorced from Keith and losing my family. All that was left was to prepare myself for that. I bit my lower lip hard. 2 weeks later, I had moved out of the apartment and into a new condo near my office. I even put my parents' house up for sale. There was nothing left. Lois moved in with Keith, and Keith and I had already completed our divorce papers and filed them. I'm sure Lois and Keith were happily starting their new life together. I smiled at my mother's portrait. "The revenge begins now. Watch over me, Mom," I thought, picturing what would happen next. The next day, at work, I had a lot of voicemail messages on my phone. One of them was from Keith. "What's going on? We're divorced, right? Why do I have to pay $30,000? Anticipating that they might come to my new place, I decided to meet them at a local diner. As soon as we started talking, Keith was yelling, I got a document from a lawyer. What's this all about? We're already divorced, right? I was confused. Exactly. I don't understand either. I had asked a lawyer to claim $40,000 from Keith as my share of the property and $30,000 from Lois to cover her part of our mother's medical expenses. The documents must have arrived at their place, and they should have expected it, but they probably didn't. I was getting frustrated. You just need to pay what you owe, I said. That's not fair, Keith protested. Listen, don't think you can get away with what you've done. I've suffered a lot because of this. Should I sue you for emotional distress as well? Emotional distress? Keith muttered. You cheated, that's a fact, so pay up. They went quiet for a moment, probably realizing they couldn't argue with the law. Then, Lois finally spoke up, looking down at me. So, Emily, you're just after the money, huh? Fine, I'll let Keith pay. If I borrow money from Dad, we can easily get the $70,000. Keith, I know you don't have any savings. Lois added, Keith will be the president soon, then he'll be rich. It's just a bit of patience. Oh, Lois, you're after the money too, aren't you? No, I have plenty of love, she said. Dad has been staying for a long time, and he'll retire when he turns 65. So, in 2 years, I'll be the president's wife. Keith said, Really? It'd be great if you could really become the president. I'm definitely going to become one. I'm the only son, Keith replied. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I burst out laughing. You can't be serious, I said, laughing. I can't believe this, I heard Lois whisper. Has she lost it? But the real stage of my revenge was just beginning. I said, Keith, you've been missing work for a long time, saying it's because of the family funeral, right? Well, my mother-in-law is family too, that's true, but the company knows what you've actually been doing. Keith looked confused. You didn't know? Your father was kind enough to attend Mom's funeral. I didn't tell you this, but I had to inform the company and your father that you lied about taking family leave for caregiving, and instead, you went off to Hawaii with your mistress. Keith froze. You never did any caregiving at all. You have the gall to act so brazenly. You've even been off work with Lois during your business trips, haven't you? I reported that too. How did you find out? Keith asked, shocked. Lois has been posting photos on social media, showing where and when she went out, and there were a few pictures with you in them. How shocking, huh? Keith was stunned. You knew about my social media? I smiled. It's the same account you had back when you were in high school. Of course, I knew. Lois looked uncomfortable, and Keith was shocked by my words. Hey, is it true that Dad knows everything? Keith asked. I replied, just like my mother was family to you, your father considered her family too. Of course, he would know about the family funeral, because it had to be reported to the company. Even after the funeral, he cared about me and contacted me several times. I reported everything to him, and he's very angry. He also said he has no intention of making you the next president. Keith was stunned. But I'm his son. I continued, he said he doesn't remember ever saying that. Our company follows the principle of merit, not hereditary succession. He told me to tell you that he doesn't need a son who acts so disloyally. I smiled quietly as their faces turned pale. And by the way, I'm becoming the president starting next month. Keith and Lois were both shocked. What? Keith said, in disbelief. I just received the official notice from the president and my superiors. I've been appointed as the new president. There's no way they'll let you become president. Keith frantically called his father, and Lois watched anxiously. Lois whispered, So, Emily is becoming the president? If I'd known that, I wouldn't have stolen you from her. But you said you loved me, including my money. I couldn't stand their squabbling, so I stood up and said, if you want to fight, do it somewhere else. Oh, and I'll be expecting the payment, thanks. As I turned to leave, I heard them begging, please don't abandon me. Please support me, sis. I ignored them, sidestepping their desperate attempts for help, and left the place. Afterward, the two of them ended up getting a divorce. My ex-husband, Keith, was demoted by his father and eventually quit his job. Now, he works part-time jobs every day to pay off what he owes me. Lois started working in a bar at night. She did well at first, but was tricked by a bad man and ended up in a terrible situation. As for me, I became the president, though it's for a small company that's a tenant in the main company's building. It's a subsidiary in the caregiving industry, which was created based on a proposal I submitted while I was on caregiving leave. The caregiving business is expected to grow, and I'm expected to do well. I'll do my best from now on.